So it's been a while since I made the first part of this video, and I'm returning to it now to do the printing. As you can see here, I have cut out the stencils that we're going to be using today. The first one that was the original tracing that we were working with, and from that I made these stencils. This is the first stencil, wrong way around, this way, no, get it right in the first place. So as you can see, that's the first stencil, which will give the block shape we'll work with, and then over that we've got the acetate stencil, which will give the outline and darkness to the print we're going to make. So I'll put these to one side. You need to be careful with these because they are quite delicate. The paper we're working with is going to be Fabriano Rosa Pina. The weight I think is around about 200 grams. Just a slight tooth to the paper. We'll see how that takes the oil pastels. The oil pastels I'm working with are the Derwent Academy pastels. Quite alright. It's the sort of middle price range. Easy to get hold of. I've had this set for a while, so we'll see how it prints. So I have my piece of Rosa Pina here, and the first stencil, which is the newsprint with the parcel tape on, and I'm going to tape this down onto the printing paper. I'm going to use a low-tack masking tape, and hopefully it won't damage the surface of the paper. So securely fasten it down so we can draw through it. So then I'm going to start working up into the shapes. So taking the pastel, I'm just going to hold the stencil, which is quite delicate, firmly in position, and then I'm just going to draw through it, really. Putting plenty of oil into the shape, oil pastel into the shape. Then taking my finger, I can start working the oil pastel into the paper, such as that. I'll do another one here. Again, just holding the stencil steady. If it's a delicate stencil like this one, you've got to hold it and just work very gently. Sometimes you find with oil pastels that they have a sort of skin on them when you've not used them for a while. So you just need to work with it and it will soften up. You can always warm the pastels, which makes them easier to work with as well. So as you can see with that, I've applied the oil pastel. So I'll now take my finger and I'm just going to rub the shape. What you're doing really is just blending the shape, the pastel onto the paper, smudging if you like, but it can create quite a nice effect. Like so. So take another colour, let's say we'll use a green, and we'll do, say, this one here. So yeah, applied it now, just taking your finger, just blending it around the shape. You may find that some of the colours transfer onto the paper a lot easier than others. It's all to do with how they are manufactured, really. You'll get used to it. And the pigment, because you can see with this one, it's not. There's a lot more. A lot more of the pastel is transferred onto the paper, so you just got to work with it. So as before, I'll come off the video at the moment and carry on completing this stage, and then I'll come back to you and I'll show you the next stage. A few things I wanted to point out while using these oil pastels. Because of the nature of the paper, it's got a slight texture to it, a slight tooth, which will hold the pastel really well. But the key to it is not to apply too much of the oil pastel onto the surface, because as you work and blend the oil pastel into the paper, you'll find that quite often, like on this one, some colours go on quite thickly, and you can work with those by taking a piece of kitchen roll and just slowly and carefully just wiping away the excess oil pastel. It will make a difference. So if you don't want to use your finger, because you can wear your finger out doing this, it's just as easy to use a piece of kitchen roll or something like that, or a rag, to work with it. So just a couple of pointers. So I've completed the first part of the oil pastel with the first stencil. So I'm just going to take the stencil off the paper now. I'll keep hold of these tape because I do reuse them. As you use them, they lose their tack a little bit, which is quite often better. It doesn't pull the surface of the paper off then. Just one more. And as you can see there, we've got the first stencil complete. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to repeat this, but I'm going to do it with dry pastel. And the only dry pastel set I have is one I've had for quite some time. And it has quite a range of colours, as you can see here, with all sorts of different makes of pastels. So using these, we shall continue with the dry pastel print. So as you can see, I've reattached this stencil using the same pieces of tape. I'm using the same paper, which is the Fabriano Rosapina, and we're going to start with the dry pastel. So just taking one shape, just the same process, applying this. This is a lot more dusty because you are working with chalks, but you will find that they blend significantly easier. But of course, the print is a lot more delicate because of the susceptibility to being smudged. So again, taking a piece of kitchen roll, just keep wiping your hands because your hands are going to get covered in dust and you don't really want to be transferring that all over the print. See, you get a much more even coating with using these pastels, the dry pastels. It's quite some time since I've used some dry pastel, so it's like a revisitation. So yeah, so I'll carry on colouring this one and come back to you. So the first stencil is complete with the dry pastel now. So again, I'm going to take it off. This is a lot more delicate because you're working really with chalk. So you just need to be careful. So let's take it off and have a look. So I'll put that stencil to one side. You can see that it's stood up to quite a bit of rubbing, and it's not showing any signs of wear and tear. So you'll get quite a few prints out of it, I would think. So now taking the acetate stencil, and we're going to place this in position over the top of this print. I don't need any registration marks because I can see where I'm positioning the print through this acetate stencil. So then just tape it down in position. So this time I'm just going to use black in the areas. Again, it's a very delicate stencil, so you just need to take your time and be careful. So you can see the point of the bridges in the stencil to hold the shape, otherwise it would just be flopping all over the place and you wouldn't really have the definition in the shapes. Well, it would fall apart really, wouldn't it? So yeah, that's okay. We're ready to take this stencil off now. What I'm going to do is put a piece of newspaper underneath because of all the dust, and I'm trying to keep my work surfaces clean. So I'll just transfer this onto some newspaper. Move it in shot, and I'll start taking off the tape. With a dry pastel, any sort of grubby marks on the paper around the edge, which you might see here, could be cleaned off with an eraser. So I'm carefully going to lift that off. Put it to one side for a second. Just shake the excess dust off And there we have the finished print. So moving on to the oil pastel now. Taking the acetate stencil and again positioning it in place. Taking the oil pastel and again just working into the areas. You'll be applying the oil pastel a little bit more rigorous than the dry pastel, so just be careful of holding the stencil in place when you're working in it. So we'll go ahead and complete this, and then we'll look at the unveiling when I've finished the black on this one. So that's the black completed on the oil pastel print. Take the tape off and we'll remove the stencil. And there we have it. That's the two prints. Side by side. This one's the oil pastel, this one's the dry pastel. Quite an interesting, easy process to work with at home. There is a different feel to the prints, really. You can see on the dry pastel that it blends a lot easier and a lot more solid with the black at the back. With the lines, the white lines that we've got at the moment, you could, in actual fact, just take one of the pastels and just draw out the line. Like so. And same with the dry pastel, it will work. Just do it very carefully. Yeah, so that's it. That's the end of this printing at home video with the Regional Print Centre. I hope you found it useful. Thank you.